Hey everybody, this is Sean from Low Code Approach. Before we hop in today's episode, I want to let you know that we are collecting everyone's thoughts on what topics we should cover for the upcoming season. To submit them, hopefully you're not driving. If you are, wait until you get somewhere safe. But go to aka.ms// low code topic request. That's all one word. aka.ms// low code topic request. And from there, enter what topics you'd like us to cover in the upcoming season, and who knows, maybe we'll be able to get to them and get to the best people at Microsoft to talk to. Anyway, thanks for listening. We're excited to get your thoughts. Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of the Low Code Approach. I'm Sean Feeney, a senior product marketing manager on the Power Platform team, and I'm joined by...
I'm Wendy Haddad. I'm a senior cloud solution architect, delivery lead, and a former customer, and I'm joined by...
Capital Ken, you see, here today to talk about, I don't know, what are we talking about today, Sean?
Well, today is an awesome topic, one that we've actually not covered before in any capacity, so I'm very, very excited to get into it. Today we have a very special guest, Rahul Ranjit, Principal Program Manager with Microsoft. How you doing today, Rahul?
Hey, Sean, I'm very well. How are you?
Doing well. So the topic is kind of this journey, in your journey in particular, from pro code to low code, and how you identified low code as like the next step or a significant step in building solutions. And I'd first off like to ask you for a little bit more of your background as we get into some more in-depth questions, and we'd love to hear how you came across this.
So I started my career when around the time .NET 2.0 launched, even before we had WCF and PF and all those things. Yes, that's where I started my career as a developer, worked through .NET 2, .NET 4, and all those other features, and then slowly got into D365 and Azure. So that's essentially my background. I'm always staying on the technical side of things. Architecture, design, development is basically my core skill set. That is essentially where my background is. I've been delivering solutions for large customers, large call centers, and things like that. And more or less, throughout my career, I've stayed with Microsoft.
So you stayed on the Microsoft stack then pretty much throughout the career.
Microsoft Stack and with Microsoft.
Okay, got it.
So Rahul, as you, started in the pro code development, can you talk a little bit more of that transition as you were developing in the low code space, and what made you consider that transition?
The first time I saw low code was in 2016. It was at a TechReady conference. It told me, though, I wasn't more into the idea at that time. And to remember, I was a person back then who lived in Visual Studio and Visio. So anything where I felt like I was losing control, I was very technical. I was a little wary with it, so did not take to it. What happened was there was an opportunity that came down almost 3 years later, where one of the customers wanted to build an enterprise stack and they wanted somebody to take out low code. And I was assigned to that project. That's how I actually got introduced to low code. And then what happened is over the next 1 year working with that project, I loved it deeper into the product itself. And a lot of things that happened during the project convinced me that this thing's here to stay. Essentially, that's when I joined the studio. I was more or less dragged by circumstances into it, but when it kind of happened, I was like, oh my God, why did I do this earlier?
Well, I was going to make a joke that you've been around since Visual Basic, but I don't think some folks...
we don't need to name me, no.
Very sure usually on the podcast.
So maybe not make the Visual Basic joke, but let's talk a little bit more about some of the more modern integrations and tools and things. So from your perspective, how do you feel the integration, or how should maybe customers look at integrating things like Azure DevOps, Logic Apps, Visual Studio with low-code offerings? Is there a place for them to live symbiotically, so to speak?
Absolutely, right? So, in fact, my first foray into low code was not really low code, but actually building a large enterprise scale call center implementation, where we leverage low code as a part that allows their implementation. Any large business, as you know, they have very stringent SDLC and things like that they have to implement as a part of their process. And we integrated local back in the day with Azure DevOps. We had CI/CD. We had solutions getting deployed automatically on the breast of a button and things like that back in 2019. And all of this was, low code data was D365. It was a It was literally a convergence of it. And the whole reason why we got sworn into this concept was not because of how low code is, but how it can augment the regular rest of the stuff that programming was doing. So that was my biggest selling point. So actually, customers should absolutely consider not just low code in the perspective of citizen development, but how it can actually augment pro developers in their organization and how they can actually use existing technologies that they probably use like DevOps, GitHub, and automate all of these things. If they don't want to go with pipelines, let us get. I'm a big fan of pipelines.
How does this change the approach for projects and problems, right? Does this cause customers to start losing control? Like, does this give them more control, more options? What does it do for them?
So here's an interesting observation following projects. The project that I specifically was my turning point, Kilo Code was. Throughout the project, we would address every issue in one of two ways. We would look at, hey, this is a use case, I need to build it using custom development versus, hey, how can we address it using loop? And in every single scenario where we picked loop, we actually saw a reduction of almost the effort that we put in to implementing and drawing that use case around low from say somewhere from 6 weeks to 2 weeks. What that resulted in was we were able to get our solutions in front of our target user base in record time. And they could come back and tell us, hey, we don't like this. And we want you to change this. We want to change this here and there. And we were able to turn those changes around faster as well. What I quickly found out over a period of a year is that everywhere we used low code, especially on the user interface side, we were able to reduce and shave massive amount of time required to get this out. And this was the project where the pilot actually was, when we released the project for the very first time during the pilot, the users came back to us, said they loved the application. Generally, pilot doesn't mean my fellow solution architects out there, right? I think that we know that orient is when we just put something in front and then we step back and we wait for feedback. And this time the feedback, it was not feedback, it was like, we love the product. And this is the value for organizations, right? The value for organization is actually the fast development, getting things in front of your user base quickly and being able to make changes and deliver them back again. So
I want to dive in a little bit to the relationships here, because as a developer, you also have your subject matter experts, your stakeholders, and previously you know, they may have provided feedback. You may have tried to learn a new process, try to understand what's going on and the requirements, and then develop against that. And maybe they didn't know all the requirements shifted, or they forgot something. Have you had experience with fusion teams? Do you think the relationship between the developer and subject matter expert, it could be changing with the Power Platform? And what are you seeing the trend to be?
yeah, this is interesting. This is something that I'm actually seeing a lot more in my recent role as like now I'm kind of moved into the engineering side where we get to watch customers adopt low code in their organizations. And what we see is a different level of engagement. We have customers who absolutely, from the business side, working hand in hand with the technology to actually turn use cases around quickly. But more importantly, I'm seeing in customers where they are actually leveraging low code to their full potential, in my opinion. The idea is just enabling the business and stepping back and letting the business build stuff that they like. So they are literally, the business is basic, like for example, right? The ID just builds a bunch of connectors to their backend APIs. And they just step back and train the business users on how to use it. They go ahead and consume these services and they build their own apps because they know what they want to do best. And essentially, it kind of becomes IT enabling business to do what they want, as opposed to the business telling IT, I want this and build it. It kind of becomes a give and take between the two teams.
Well, I think there's something that really you and I have in common as well, and that is how our careers have evolved through low code. I used to be a customer. Now I complain so much that Microsoft hired me to fix their problems. Now you are also a program manager where you help not just customers of all shapes and sizes, but also in specific industries. Could you maybe talk a little bit about some of the specific challenges that maybe some of the industries face and how now your new role, right, how you go about helping customers overcome some of the challenges that they see? Maybe like in the financial services or highly regulated industries.
That's a very interesting thing, right? So now So I have been focused a little bit on the financial industry side now in my role, working across with a lot of customers. But one of the key challenges that I encounter with customers in this industry specifically is that one, they are a lot of the big players are slowly getting into the Azure space. So we are now a stack about that. We are almost like we're like, you know, more, we will not know of Azure and we're like a software as a service, so to speak. So now the question comes up in terms of, is your organization ready to bring in a platform like Power Platform and understand how you can leverage it and how secure this is? So some of the concerns that I've seen organizations raise is about, hey, do I get to control this? Is this platform secure? Is my data accessible to anyone, etc.? And there's a lot of concerns that these customers raise. And in most of the conversations that we end up with, once we start working through the details, the customers quickly realize that this platform actually improves their security posture as opposed to opening up a wider risk that they don't already have. This is probably the biggest thing that I've seen in the customer. They're skeptical to actually accept. They're skeptical about the security posture where this platform will introduce, where it actually ends up improving their security posture.
Yeah, I agree. There's a phenomenal set of features that help not only set up a governance strategy, but also enforce that governance strategy for your end users as you're building and deploying and implementing solutions. I do want to pivot topics. I do, like you brought up Ken's trigger word security, so I'm sure he's going to go back and talk about it at some point. But I do want to change the topic just for a moment to talk a little bit about skill transfer, right? So you went from pro code, and so you understand, engineering, computer science background, and then you hop into a tool set such as low code. How did your skills transfer, or even just your mind mapping of how you engineer a solution, like translate from going into a low code drag and drop visual designer? Or were you able to enforce those same type of design philosophies?
I was talking to a customer yesterday and I showed them a funny GIF at the end of my presentation. And I said, everybody can dribble a ball. What matters is where are you playing? Are you playing on the finals in FIFA, or are you playing in the rec center with a bunch of kids, right? In terms of football, right? Or soccer. And here's the thing, right? Just because you're using remote to build applications specifically, and this is specifically for pro developers, right? Just because you're using local doesn't mean that software architecture design principles go out of the window. What low-code allows you is to accelerate your output to market, not to actually abandon control and say, oh my God, the platform does everything for me, right? As a pro developer, when you build applications, you are actually building applications that serve up thousands, if not thousands of users in your organization. You're handling data in millions. You're not playing the role of a citizen developer. You're playing the role of a product. What matters is to understand the foundation for each of these services that Power Platform provides and leverage them the right way within your architecture. That's where the difference is. And when I transitioned from product to leveraging low code, the thing is, if I look back, I had the same transition phases that I had when WPF came in, when Silverlight came in, and I had to pick up these technologies. I had to learn. WPF was a big paradigm shift from .NET to OLEDs because they had a declarative way of addressing user interface. And when I went into low code, I had to absolutely relearn again the fact that this was a declarative. So Canvas app is a declarative UI. If I try to use my for loop, if else conditions to actually implement Canvas apps, that app is going to slow down after a while. Right? So it's about learning and relearning again. It's not about, hey, if I have a skill set and that is directly applicable, like you have to go through that channel. This is the same channel you go through with any other software stack.
Yep. Nope, 100% agree on that. And so in the discussion of development, kind of transferring skills on there, how did that help you as far as extensibility of the platform? You mentioned earlier, like, I'm going to build connectors. And so that enables subject matter experts to leverage some of the, the processes or some of the external technologies and build it into the business processes and move forward with it. How did that help you maybe expedite some of the integrations, either dropping custom code into applications or, quickly developing connectors and understanding how the API was designed for that third-party service?
Couple of things here, right? I'll refer back to a personal view of mine. UX is not really my strong suit. right? So anything that where I have to play with CSS, where I have to play with JavaScript and make those corners look absolutely stunning is not my cup of tea. So one of the first wins for me getting into this was how simple it was to build fluid interfaces with Canvas app with custom pages. But on a wider scale, what I have understood with this platform, or what I see as the advantage of this platform, is this platform can abstract away the complexities, providing value directly to the business. Now, here's an example. I could talk about specifically the connectors that you raised, Sean. Organizations have a lot of siloed APIs, on-prem APIs that they build, and nothing is more prevalent than you can see. There's nothing more in banks. Essentially, banks have so many APIs that they build. They have so many APIs, transactions, customer managing customer master data, all that stuff. Right now, if you talk to one of these APIs, the response that comes back from these APIs are massive, humongous stacks of JSON and things like that that a business would not be able to make sense of. Now, imagine a product team that goes in and creates a layer of connectors that absolutely simplifies this response that comes from these APIs into, let's just take the example of a customer, first name, last name, address, and phone number. That's all. And once that connector becomes available to the business team, they go in and they drag and drop this connector into a Canvas app, and suddenly they have a response coming back that they can absolutely understand instead of something that says, oh, data, not data, not well, which doesn't really make any sense, right? So this is where the power of this platform is, especially when it comes to organizations, ability to simplify and innovate on top of. Here it's just saying crown jewels, so to speak, without actually going in and touching them, because touching them is like an 8-month exercise in the financial industry, I would say. You are in the signature of an API by that FSI, you'll understand my thinking.
You and I were friends up until you mentioned Silverlight and low code, and that's it. No coffee, no brownies, no nothing for you from me now. No.
I'm sorry. I feel like in Silverlight when they actually I actually mourn Silverlight. Let's just say that I love that thing. But anyways.
Thinking about like this whole transition here, I'm just wondering, like, is low code like the silver bullet? Should you always gravitate toward low code first as a pro developer and then see where you need to bring pro code? Do you need to start with pro code and then see where low code fits? Like, how do you decide which tool when you're building that solution?
See, I don't consider any technology stack to be a silver bullet, because it's not about low code as a silver bullet for everything. Like, there are different types of projects, and I look at low code as one of the things in my arsenal as a product low code to leverage where it fits, right? Where it fits. Now, it's an interesting thing. How do you start a project? Right? Do you want to go directly to low code? I absolutely start at low code when I start thinking about projects, because it helps me ideate quicker. The idea is not to build a solution, but to ideate the solution better, right? Think about how the data model is going to look like. Think about how the customer is going to interact with it. I can move out a simple application with Copilot in less than 20 minutes, right? And I'm not talking about the first landing app that a Copilot creates. I'm talking about a little bit more sophistication that I can add after the Copilot does its job. Once I'm there, then I start to understand the complexities of the solution, and then I decide where low code fits into the larger architecture. In a lot of cases, you can actually build an best stack in Power Platform. There's no questions about it. But it's not black and white like that in the world, right? Like, organizations have restrictions, they have issues, they have things where you have to fit in certain things. In a lot of product implementations, Power Platform ends up playing an augmenting role, or majority of the role in terms of, hey, my data flows in Power Platform, my UI is in Power Platform, but maybe I have a different messaging thing in the background that I have to work. If you talk to any developer and ask, what is your silver bullet? They are not going to name a stack. It depends on the situation. But what Power Platform can do is, for a product, is that they can start ideating a solution very, very quickly. So you can start a project by ideating in it, but not really end up leveraging it towards the end. You will end up probably augmenting your solution or building it entirely on Power Platform. So I know you don't want to say that from a product perspective that our platform is a silver bullet for it, but definitely it plays out.
Well, I think it's fair. I think it's realistic because it's a tool in your toolbox. It's a good tool, it's a strong tool, it makes sense. But there's reasons why we're building extensive or, the ability to integrate things like Visual Studio in or Azure, right, into your Power Platform, because there are cases where you do need to extend and it needs to be customized further. And so I think that's a really good call out.
Speaking of extending, Wendy, we can take a step back to the podcast a bit. You talked about APIs and said my bigger word, security. Listening to customers at times in the community and the conferences and emails that we get, many customers think about custom connectors and some of the underlying framework as a part of the Power Platform as a risk when connecting to APIs, because maybe those APIs are just not managed and not open or sorry, too open. Do we often, or do you run into situations or maybe advise customers on using technologies like Azure API management to really structure their APIs such that they are available to low-code platforms like our platform so that they can be consumed in a more structured way?
No, absolutely. If someone hasn't tried this out, you have to go set up Azure APIM on your side and see how easy it is to set up a connector from Azure APIM. It's literally 3 clicks, right? You don't, if you have good, well-defined API, also behind API. So definitely we do. You leveraging something like Azure APIM, the productivity boost that you can get from just setting up the right API in there and then allowing developers to actually go and build against that is probably one of the fastest ways in which you can make connectors scale. The reality on the ground though is that this API market is actually, it's a very competitive market and there's a lot of competitors out there which our customers use as well. And a lot of the times the conversation is around, hey, how can you work with that API in there so that you can expose the right set of APIs for your end users to consume? Going back to Ken's point, APIM, Azure APIM, if customers are considering setting up an APIM layer for their platform services, APIM probably is one of the best integrations in the platform that I've seen.
So you mentioned the golden word earlier, Copilot. And before we wrap up, I want to just dig a little bit deeper into that. You said like, hey, I can build out like a proof of concept solution in like 20 minutes, or at least the starting framework of that solution within 20 minutes. How do you see in your experience Copilot being either the next evolution of solution design for a pro code developer, maybe not even transitioning, but adding low code to their toolkit? Do you see it blurring the lines for solution development between the two? Or do you see them as, I don't know, low code was my easy button, Copilot's my easier button?
No, so several things. One is, I'll tell you three of my top favorite features in Copilot, especially when it comes to Power Platform, right? One is the ability for me to quickly add data to tables while I'm actually designing. It is unbelievably simple how powerful a few advances when you have Copilot ability to for you. But my absolute favorite, and the second favorite one, is essentially the ability to build flows using commands. Like you can basically get yourself started by writing a full Power flow by just writing it, right? But in the real world, programmers end up a lot of time looking back at work or get builds. Essentially, a lot of their work involves picking up stuff that is in progress, that has already been built so far. And this is where my favorite, absolute hands-down favorite feature comes in, is I can go and ask Copilot and describe a flow back to me and not have to click through the if, else, and the for loops and understand what's going on. This is hands down my favorite thing, because a lot of our work, product work, involves going back and understanding what was built before so that you can actually move forward. And this thing is just, for me, the best thing that has ever happened. And for products too. And augment this with Copilot and Visual Studio. I was just talking to a few of my friends who are SDEs, and they're like, the productivity gains across Copilot, across the stack. It's not just for our platform, right? And we have it and rooted across our stack. It's just massive. So it's not in one place that you start getting these gains. You get it across as a programmer, you go from our platform to Visual Studio to VS Code, the Copilot, the integration is just it's just the productivity gains are just insane.
Rahul, your second favorite, I want to maybe just quickly comment on that one. We don't just talk about it and whatnot within the podcast and the communities and everything else. We actually utilize and live this stuff. Wendy has been posting some great Copilot prompts on LinkedIn. If you all have not seen some of the comments that Wendy has been making about using things with Power Automate and how she has increased her efficiency gains, I highly recommend that you go on and look at that. Even if, you're altering the prompt slightly, it's helped me out quite a bit. So Wendy, thank you very much.
You honestly caught me off guard. I had no idea that was where you were going. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I set a personal goal this year across both personal and work to challenge myself to say, you've got to adopt it, because I think it's more than the technology. It's the learning curve of, and I would actually argue this for low code too. It's the learning curve of how do you identify what can be optimized. I think sometimes we get in this rut of this is just the way we've always done it. And we don't think about how a team can be optimized or a process can be optimized or improved. And so just paying more attention to your everyday life. And so, yeah, I've just been playing around with, okay, what could make this better, and just posting it. So thank you for the shout out. I am getting the time countdown clock going. So Rahul, we very much want to keep you on longer. So we're going to definitely have to bring you back. But before we wrap up, any final resources that would be helpful, especially for pro developers who are considering the low code space or even Copilot?
So I'm not going to go into technical resources for this. Okay. There is a video out there from Parquet with an interview with Dave Wilson. And he describes what they call as the pro code developer stages of grief. And when I watched it, I thought it was telling my story. Right? So the point I'm trying to make is that I want anyone who's starting into low code area, looking into leveraging low code, to go and look at that and understand that this is where you're going to run into. You're going to go through stages of grief as you adopt a new platform. And that's the same with any technical stack if you think about it. Anything new comes in, you are not, you understand, you get excited, you go into hey, I try to do this, do the shop and all that stuff, and then finally it makes sense. Right? You're going to go through that. Please go look at that video. And go in going that you're in for a learning curve. And once you hit that upward slope, you will suddenly realize how much value this platform is to you as a toolkit in your arsenal. So that's it.
Wow, I was not associating in that direction, but I think that's even a better resource on the thought leadership side. We'll definitely include that in the show notes, but thank you so much for joining the podcast. We'll definitely have you back. And for the listeners, let us know if you want more content like this.